Life gives us opportunities. If you listen to the news, or even if you don't listen to the news, you know yesterday somebody very, very talented passed away. And this person, this famous boxer, now you all know who I'm talking about, left quite a history for us, really, when you think about all that he meant, all that, and I can't even begin to tell you. I enjoy boxing, but I don't get to watch it very often. So we know that is part of what we're thinking about even today, and probably in the days to come. And I think about kind of going off onto the memorial service last week. I so wish that I would have discovered this last week, but I know time was I couldn't. I really had to stick to my notes and everything. Last week I kept thinking, well, actually over the last several weeks, I have been thinking, and I thought, why does that name, Franklin Kincaid, why is that so much into my head? Like, I have been thinking, didn't I meet him at one point? And I thought, I'm just sure. Because usually when somebody tells me their name, we have a conversation, I usually can remember them. Well, when I was pastoring the Assembly of God, I believe he came, I'm pretty sure, like 99% sure, he came to one of the dinners, whatever it was that we were doing. And the reason I say that is because he gave me something. He gave me this pen. And I kept wondering, I think he gave me a pen, but where is it? Well, little did I hadn't looked at this pen. I had it right by my bedside. And a couple of days ago, I thought, I need to see if I can find that pen. And I thought, hey, this is a nice pen. And I happened to look at it. And on this pen, it says, oh boy. It says, Franklin Kincaid, second line, thank you. Third line, Psalm 128. And, I go back to actually what I'm preaching on, and that is investing. And maybe your first thought is, I got to invest my money in the bank. I got to invest it in CDs and retirement funds, whatever. But what about investing it in people? Franklin Kincaid, whether he knew it or not, he was investing in me because he gave me this pen. Little did he know someday that I would be right here. I didn't know it. Didn't have the foggiest idea. And so you never know what's going to happen in your life to know what you have planted a seed or invested in and how God is going to use that. I have another illustration that happened this morning of all things. I couldn't believe it. And I'll say it because I think it's important. I say it but I don't want to toot my own horn, okay? So just know I'm not tooting my own horn, okay? All right. But you have to understand, a few days ago I was doing a pity party, okay? Pity party, nobody ever does those, okay? And, sometimes we do wonder, what is our value? What is our value to those around us? And sometimes we don't know until after we're gone. This morning I received this short email from somebody in Keokuk, Iowa. Keokuk, Iowa was one of the places that I was actually on staff at. And since then I've had opportunities to go and minister the Word of God to them. And they're dear folks. This was back in the 80s when I was there. So you can see how through the years we have stayed in contact. Well, this lady had emailed me back in the middle of May, and I was just getting back to her yesterday, some information she wanted. And so this morning she emailed me And she said, every time I think about you, I think about the last sermon you preached when you filled in at our church. And she went on to say it, and she says, I've actually used this as a devotion in our women's group. And I'm like, really? You know, because you think sometimes, oh, what is this? You know, it's just whatever. So I say that to encourage you that you may not realize the effect that you are having on people, but you are investing in people in ways that you have no idea sometimes. I have this story to illustrate this even further. There was a man named Carl. He was a quiet man. He would always greet a person with a big smile and a firm handshake. Still, no one could really say they knew Carl very well. Before his retirement, he took the bus to work each morning. He had a slight limp from a bullet wound that he received in World War II. And even though he had survived the war, a person could wonder if he would make it through the changing uptown neighborhood with its ever-increasing random violence, gangs, and drug activity. The local church had a flyer asking for volunteers to care for the gardens behind the minister's residence. Wait a minute, I have a, where's my, this just happened this morning too. Another illustration, it fell off that plan, okay, so this is Carl's garden, okay. I tell you. So Carl responded and to this flyer, and so that was him. And so actually he was well past, or not well past, but he was past his 87th birthday when one day, as he was finishing his watering, 3 gang members approached him, and ignoring their attempt to intimidate him, he simply asked, "Would you like a drink from the hose?" The tallest and toughest looking of the 3 said, "Yeah, sure," with a sly little smile. And as Carl offered the hose to him, the other 2 grabbed Carl's arm, throwing him down. And as the hose snaked crazily over the ground, dousing everything in its way, Carl's assailants stole his retirement watch and his wallet and then fled. Carl tried to get himself up, but he had been thrown down on his bad leg. He lay there, trying to gather himself up as the minister came running to help him. And although the minister had witnessed the attack from his window, he couldn't get there fast enough to stop it. "Carl, are you hurt? Are you okay?" the minister kept asking as he helped Carl to his feet. Carl just passed a hand over his brow and sighed, shaking his head. "Just some punk kids. I hope they'll wise up someday." His wet clothes clung to his slight frame as he bent to pick up the hose. He adjusted the nozzle again and started to water. Confused and a little concerned, the minister asked, "Carl, what are you doing?" "I've got to finish my watering. It's been very dry lately," came the calm reply. Satisfying himself that Carl really was all right, the minister could only marvel. Carl was a man from a different time and place. A few weeks later, the 3 returned. Just as before, their threat was unchallenged. Carl again offered them a drink from the hose. This time they didn't rob him. They wrenched the hose from his hand and drenched him head to foot in the icy water. When they had finished their humiliation of him, they sauntered off down the street, throwing catcalls and curses, falling over one another, laughing at the hilarity of what they had just done. Carl just watched them. Then he turned toward the warmth-giving sun, picked up his hose, and went on with his watering. The summer was quickly fading into fall. Carl was doing some tilling when he was startled by the sudden approach of someone behind him. He stumbled and fell into some evergreen branches. As he struggled to regain his footing, he turned to see the tall leader of his summer tormentors reaching down for him. He braced himself for the expected attack. "Don't worry, old man. I'm not going to hurt you this time," the young man spoke softly, still offering the tattooed and scarred hand to Carl. As he helped Carl get up, the man pulled a crumpled bag from his pocket and handed it to Carl. "What's this?" Carl asked. "It's your stuff," the man explained. "It's your stuff back, even the money in your wallet." "I don't understand," Carl said. "Why would you help me now?" The man shifted his feet, seemingly embarrassed and ill at ease. "I learned something from you," he said. "I ran with that gang and hurt people like you. We picked you because you were old and we knew we could do it. But every time we came and did something to you, instead of yelling and fighting back, you tried to give us a drink. You didn't hate us for hating you. You kept showing love against our hate." He stopped for a moment. "I couldn't sleep after we stole your stuff, so here it is back. That bag is my way of saying thanks for straightening me out." And with that, he walked off down the street. Carl looked back at the sack in his hands and gingerly opened it. He took out his retirement watch and put it back on his wrist. Opening his wallet, he checked for his wedding photo. He gazed at the young bride that still smiled back at him from all those years ago. He died one cold day after Christmas that winter. Many people attended his funeral in spite of the weather. The minister noticed a tall young man that he didn't know sitting quietly in a distant corner of the church. The minister spoke of Carl's garden as a lesson in life. In a voice made thick with unshed tears, he said, "Do your best and make your garden as beautiful as you can. We will never forget Carl and his garden." The following spring, another flyer went up. It read, "Person needed to care for Carl's garden." The flyer went unnoticed by the busy parishioners until one day when a knock was heard at the minister's office door. Opening the door, the minister saw a pair of scarred and tattooed hands holding the flyer. "I believe this is my job, if you'll have me," the young man said. The minister recognized him as the same young man who had returned the stolen watch and wallet to Carl. He knew that Carl's kindness had turned this man's life around. As the minister handed him the keys to the garden shed, he said, "Yes, go take care of Carl's garden and honor him." The man went to work, and over the next several years, he tended the flowers and vegetables just as Carl had done. In that time, he went to college, he got married, and became a prominent member of the community. But he never forgot his promise to Carl's memory and kept the garden as beautiful as he thought Carl would have kept it. One day, he approached the new minister and told him that he couldn't care for the garden any longer. He explained with a shy and happy smile, "My wife just had a baby boy last night, and she's bringing him home on Saturday." "Well, congratulations," said the minister as he was handed the garden shed keys. "That's wonderful. What's the baby's name?" "Carl." Yeah, you've heard the story before, right? Carl. So yeah. So this story illustrates so much of this message today in talking about time, talent, and treasure. Let's talk about time here. Time is such a precious commodity, and if you're anything like me, you find yourself running all day long and trying to multitask in order to hopefully get more things accomplished. And sometimes we think with all of our technology and everything that we should be able to multitask better and function better, but it seems like we still don't have enough time. And yet, we still have 24 hours a day. Well, I caught myself a number of years ago, or corrected myself, because I used to say, I don't have time for this, And then I realized that I should be saying, I choose to make time for whatever. So it's more of a case of, what do you choose to make time for in your life? And so we need to look at time in that perspective. Going back to Luke and the parable there, the servants were given time. They were given time to invest. And my question for you, one of my questions for you is, what are you investing your time in? I can tell you that, yes, our daughters are graduated from high school, and a lot of that is over with. But during the high school years, there would be days, I can say this because they're not here, I guess. I would say it even if they were here. They are at Osceola at the Assembly of God, so don't think that they're staying home sleeping, because they're not. Are you kidding me? No. But there would be times that, and maybe this is part of having daughters, I don't know, since we never had any sons, but we would spend sometimes maybe 2 hours a night just talking. And I can say this now since I'm on the other side, but I still say this is what helped us in order to get through those teenage years. And I think I can use that in counseling parents now, that, talk to your kids, let them talk to you, and just give them that. So are you investing your time in things eternal? People are eternal. Or things of the earth that will pass away? Okay. Like for instance, clothes. Some of my clothes, I think, I'm living like the children of Israel, seeing if they'll last 40 years, Because I hate to give up clothes, but yet I like to get new ones, so I'm torn. If you invest your time in people, you can't go wrong, because people are eternal. But if you invest your time in stuff and more stuff, what are you going to do with all your stuff? Better yet, what are your children going to do with all your stuff after you're dead and gone? I know, now I've gone to meddling, haven't I? Moving right along. In this parable, you notice that it says 10 servants, but there were only 3 servants that are picked on, or how they represent how we spend our time and what we invest our time in. And you think about it, one of these days, whether it's sooner or later, but one of these days when we stand before God, we will either hear the words, "Well done, you good and faithful servant," or we will hear the words, "You wicked servant." And I don't know about you, but I don't want to be called "you wicked servant." I want to know that I finished well. It doesn't matter how you start, but it matters how you finish. And you need to finish well. Secondly, talent. And you say, well, I don't play the piano, so I don't have any talent. Oh, yes, you do. And I watch everybody, and I watch to see what people's talents are, and it's just so evident to me. You know, how God has given each of us talents to use for his kingdom. Be a Carl, like in our story. How he was good at gardening, and look how he was used for God. That is not my talent. Not my talent, gardening. Trust me, we've tried a couple of gardens, and it's weeds and nothing grows. And same way with plants. I have 2 plants in our home, and they make it by the grace of God.
Amen.
So, but there are some of you, I had 2 grandmothers that were both, oh my goodness, they had plants all over the place, and they were good, and I did not get that talent from them. We have been given excellent resources to build and expand God's kingdom. The challenge that we have is to take what is in our hand. You know, that may be the talent, it may be time, it may be the treasure, but take what is in your hand and use it for the glory of God and for building up others, encouraging them. Be the church, and I know you are the church, but be the light in the darkness, whether you are at work, at school, at home, in the field, at the grocery store, wherever you may be. Be ready for anybody to decide to make this church their home church. I believe there are individuals that are just waiting. They've heard good things about the Cromwell Church, like I hear good things. And they're saying, I wonder if I could go to that church. Well, maybe it depends on you inviting them. Do you know how statistics are as far as, look at yourself. Well, you might say, well, it was my family. My parents invited me, so that's why I'm here. But still, somebody invited you. Most people don't just show up in church uninvited. Right? Anybody here show up in church uninvited? Let me see your hand. No, how about that? So if you were invited, then maybe you should invite some others, huh? Okay, I'm going to meddling again. I'm moving right along. But I don't know if you're familiar with that term home church. I just want to deal on that for just a minute because home church is a term that I use, and I know sometimes people aren't familiar with that. But I look at it as a home church is where you feel comfortable, just like your home you feel comfortable in. Okay, and where you are comfortable, you are able to learn better. And so sometimes people just need a home church where they can feel comfortable and learn and grow as a believer. So, home church. And we need to build relationships to win people over to the Lord. I am such a firm believer in building relationships, and I could tell you story upon story of people that have built relationships, and as a result, they're in church, they've become a Christian. You know, it's not through handing out tracts or I'm just saying, knocking on a door and say, hi, will you come to church Sunday? Well, they don't know you from anything, and so they don't even know if they can trust you. So if you start, you look at how Jesus did his ministry on this earth. He took the time. He went to the woman at the well. And he shouldn't have gone to the woman at the well because she was a Samaritan. Ooh, outcast. But he did. He did. And guess what? Well, he told her all these kinds of things that nobody should have known about her. And as a result, what happened? She believed. She believed because of his building that relationship with her. That was a freebie. That wasn't even in my notes, so I'm not even going to share the example that is in my notes. How's that? But there is a statistic out there that says for every one person whose life is changed or influenced for the kingdom of God, it will actually affect 1,000 people. Wow. 1,000 people. Think about whether it be through generations upon generations or through other friends, family, co-workers, whatever. 1,000 people. That means each and every one of you can affect 1,000 people. And you're going, wow, my worth just got even more, didn't it? All right. Now you can quiet on me now. That's all right. Thirdly, treasure. Sorry. Treasure. And sometimes when we think of treasure, we think of the money, the possessions, the wealth. And there have been times in our lives, Ken's and my lives, in which we have really felt like the Lord has spoken to our hearts to give away big items like a car or living room furniture. And so far, God hasn't told us to give away our home. Now that would be an interesting thing, especially when you have a mortgage payment. But anyway, and through all of that, what I've discovered is that sometimes it can be a test. Going back to how back with Abraham and Isaac offering up, God spoke to Abraham and said, "I want you to offer your son Isaac." Well, if you know anything about that law, you know that it was against the law to sacrifice human beings. So Abraham knew something was fishy here, but he knew that he could trust God. No matter what God tells you, okay, boss, yes, sir, yes, sir. And so Abraham was ready to sacrifice his only son. And so what I have discovered is that sometimes it's not about giving up possessions, but it's about God trying to see if you are willing to give up possessions. Okay? Or are we holding on too tightly? And I know some of you are just going, man, you're really stepping on my toes this morning. You're meddling and meddling and meddling, and just stop it already. And really, if I'm saying that to you, just know it's from the Lord, because I don't know anything that much about your lives to be even saying these things. So, but the thing of it is, we may be tested like Abraham, being told by God to sacrifice his one and only son. Now, what I think is so cool about the story of Abraham going to sacrifice Isaac, I mean, it's a whole sermon in itself, but it's the fact that while they're walking up the mountain on one side, God is on the other side. God is always working behind the scenes. We may not think, oh, God's doing anything, or we may not think God is moving, but God is always providing for that particular need. And so when they get up to the top of the mountain, God is there to meet them. And so that should encourage our hearts to know that whatever test we may experience going up the mountain, we do not know what God is doing in preparation for us on the other side of the mountain. So we should keep climbing, and God will surely provide. Now, going back to Luke 19 again with the king. Why was the king so hard on this man who had not increased the money investment? Why was he so hard? I know when I was a kid, I would read this story and I thought, well, what's the big deal? He just kept the money. He didn't do anything with it. I didn't understand as a child. But the reason is that he punished the servant because, 4 reasons. First of all, he didn't share his master's interest in the kingdom. He didn't share that. Secondly, he didn't trust his master's intentions. Ooh. Thirdly, his only concern was for himself. Ooh, sometimes we are guilty of that. And then the 4th thing, he did nothing to use the money. He did nothing to use the money. You know, I can remember my grandpa, because of going through the depression and everything, he would hide his money under the mattress. But you think about it, it wasn't investing a thing through that. But he still had a lot of money. But anyway, excuse me. So God has given each of us gifts to use for the benefit of his kingdom. And my question for us this morning is, do we want to grow? Do we want the kingdom of God to grow? Do we trust God to govern it fairly? Are we concerned for others' welfare as we are for our own? And finally, are we willing to use faithfully what he has entrusted to us. Again, what is in your hand? What is in your hand that you can use? I had some dollar bills this morning. That was in my hand. So, I'm thankful for piano lesson money, that I can share, because I wanted to invest in these boys and girls. I wanted to invest in them. I want them to always know that I want to be there to invest in their lives. And so I hope that will stay with you for all of your life, the importance of investing, boys and girls, and adults as well. May God add his blessing on his word this morning. Let us turn.